Hi class. In today's lesson, we're just going to round off the last few bits and pieces to finish the packaging project. Really, essentially a consolidation period where we can tidy up some loose ends and also add in the annotation just to show some reflection on how we've actually applied elements, principles, and DTP techniques. So for a starting point, one of the things that will improve the appearance is the removal of any outlines. So you'll recall that I said maybe right back at the start that where we have these big shapes, we can actually just go around and select them, and you'll see the borders here. We can actually just make them invisible by just ticking the wee eye symbol. So if you go around, you should find that you can just pick out um, all of the kind of big background boxes that you did, as long as you grab them. You should be able to just go around, get the boxes, get all of these, just using your shift key to select multiple items and make those borders invisible. And it'll just make it look a little bit tidier, because in reality, if you designed something, you wouldn't leave it with big kind of dark marks around the edges that would be apparent when you went to kind of print it and show the other sides. A couple of other wee things just to consider if you have some time would be little tweaks in terms of your alignment and your arrangement. So, for example, just making sure things were centered properly. And the alignment tool seems to work by using the second object selected as the item to which the first item is aligned. So if we select these two items here, we could then go to right click. That's curious. Yeah, sorry, I just had to pause a wee moment there because the option for align wasn't coming up when I right click. For some reason, when I double click on the items, it will then let me right click, but not if I just do a kind of normal selection. It doesn't seem to come up with the options. However, it's not a huge issue over here. We've actually got some tools, so we can use the center align tool here just to make sure that things are lined up properly. So you'll see that box actually, this vertical line was actually really quite far off the mark. And so if we then select these other items, we can do the same thing. Just go through and just make sure that everything is properly center aligned. Again, I'm going to nudge that across. And if this has kind of moved about a little bit, simple solution is just to group everything together. So hold your shift key, click on your several items that you want to get together at the same time. You'd want to then just gently nudge them back. You can see that mine had moved a wee touch across. Just nudge them back across to where they should have been. And really, that's the objective here, just to kind of do all these little tidying up bits at the end of the process to sort out some loose ends. Now, if we were doing this in Zara, I'll be completely frank in saying that it would probably be a lot quicker for me to show you, and the videos might be a little bit clearer, but unfortunately, we're just kind of getting used to using new software that we can work online, so I just have to do the best we can. Again, we'll see here, we should be able to just kind of click on the different objects and align. Likewise, this one here, we want to align that to the background. You just got to make sure that you get the right item selected. Unfortunately, that one doesn't want to pick up, so you might just have to, if necessary, give it a wee nudge, if it doesn't look like it wants to go, it wants to go. But you'll get the idea. So just go around and look carefully at all of your layout, essentially, and just make sure that all these little things that could have been a little bit more carefully aligned, maybe when you originally created them, that you have actually properly aligned everything, so it's all nice and neat and tidy. And if you can do that, you'll find that, by the time you get through the process, it'll all just feel that little bit more professional. Just daft little things like these two boxes here being a little bit too high up for there, so that, the gap didn't look quite even. It's a subtle thing, but it matters. I probably want to add in the titles for these two bits of text, which I skipped previously, but I'm not going to go through that just now. And any final amendments you want to make in terms of the actual design. So for example, I might say that actually I quite like these kind of bubbly kind of symbols, so you can maybe grab a little bunch of them from down here and just copy and paste and drag them up. So we've got a little pile of them up on that part of the layout. Unfortunately, I'm recording this on a different screen, which is a lot smaller than the one I was using previously, so it makes it a bit awkward to show you. You know, just pop them into there and, you know, send to back if necessary. Those were fortunately already below the other items. As I say, have a wee look over, take some time to look over your design, see if there's any opportunities whereby you could basically just improve the appearance of it. You know, tidy it all up a wee bit, make sure everything's centered. Any little finishing touches or improvements that you feel you could make, because remember, it's not got to be exactly the same as your working rough. The main idea is really that this is your finished graphic, it's as good as possible. So if you need to make some changes, make some changes. It's not a big deal. Now, depending how long that takes you, it probably won't take you very long. You know, little things like even going down to these icons here, which are photographs and quite difficult to arrange, or at least to get lined up, because the boundary of the photograph is larger than the image part of it. So when you try and line them up, they don't all line up properly. I'll illustrate what I mean by that actually. So I'll select these here and I'll ungroup them. And we'll just see if we can get them all selected together. So we'll do a shift select. So you see that if I was to align them all at one edge, the bottom edge of the image is actually in a different place for each of them, because the boundary of the image box is bigger than the edge of the image in a few cases. So the little things that you can do, like creating a box as a guide for things like that. We'll just get rid of its fill, but give it a border. And use that as a guide to manually just go around and grab these objects, just reposition them or resize them if you can't use the align tools, so they look like they're all kind of pretty much where they should be, all neat, and they're all about the same size. As I said before, it's not a hugely time-consuming or difficult thing to do, but it's just these little things that, you know, give that impression of professionalism, a bit more care and attention. No, just there we go. Get a bit fiddly sometimes, but there we go. That's them all kind of lined up, and then you could just nudge them side to side to get the spacing to look a little bit better. It all looks even. And then when you're done with the guide box, you can get rid of it. So anyway, I'll not go into any more about the, you know, the things you could do to tidy up. You can obviously look at your own layout, but as I say, the key thing is aligning, arranging, repositioning, just taking a bit of care to look through it really carefully and pick up any of those things that you kind of just chucked down onto the page in a rush earlier on, and maybe hadn't kind of lined up with as much care as you probably should have. This is really your opportunity to sort all that stuff out. Now, when you're happy that you've done so, you'll also find it should make life easier when it comes to this next step, which is the annotation. So you need to add at least 4 annotations which identify and explain how you've used various elements and principles as well as techniques through your design. So for example, in mine, I could add a little line here out to an annotation. So I'm going to put I think I'll put a line going down to these items here. And I'll just add a wee text box up here. We'll need to change that font size way back down. Probably something sensible. Let's go for somewhere about 8. And I'll probably just make it slightly easier to read font. I'm not going to get too precious about it, to be honest. Just there we go, Lexan. Lexan's quite a good one for reading. Actually, make it a slightly smaller one. There we go. So in here, I'm just going to add a wee note about depth. So just put depth as a heading. Depth has been created by layering several graphic items on top of each other. This adds visual interest to a 2D layout which could otherwise look flat. So let me typo it there. There we go. I'll need to make that slightly bigger so it all fits in. But really that's it. So you just want to go around and pick out where you've used different principles or elements. So again, we could talk about how line has been used as a separator here, and as a kind of a boundary on some of these, these graphics here, and to help separate them from the stuff around them. We could talk about how Unity has been used in a range of ways through repetition of the shapes, like these little circles, through repetition of a shared color scheme, through repeated use of the same logo and font, and so on and so forth, through the use of a circle with the image in it. So there's a lot of opportunities here really for us to talk about different principles. Again, contrast, we could talk about contrast in the different colors. We've got this green along with the really kind of strongly contrasting purple that it stands out against, which creates visual impact. You get the idea. I don't want to, as I say, I don't want to go on and on about it too much. And then beyond that, you could add in any comments about techniques if you felt you want to. Like for example, here we've used solid fills in all the boxes except this one, where we've used, and actually this one, where we've used a gradient fill. Or if you've used fit text along a curve, or you've used the rotate tool to reorient text. If you've used text boxes for extended text, or you've used whatever, really, it doesn't matter hugely. But the point is using the terminology from the course thus far, the different techniques, terms that we can use for describing our DTP work. Just really looking to see you using that and showing that you understand how to apply that terminology. So as I say, it's up to you. Minimum of 4 comments on either graphic elements or principles or DTP techniques that you've applied. And having done that, you're really basically finished, and you can go up to your File, and you'll see that you've got a range of options for export. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to export it. Ideally, we would normally save it as 300 dpi PDF, but we're not able to do that here, which would be kind of a suitable format for printing. I'll not go into it hugely, but basically that would allow us to save it as a vector graphic, where all of these are just shapes that aren't made up of pixels, so they can't lose their quality as they're increased in size. But for the sake of what we're going to do, because you can't do that without the pro version, to maintain the best possible quality, what I think we're going to do is just go to PNG image instead as an alternative. And if you just go and save it, let's just say, put it into my folder here. You'll be doing this in your Chromebook, so you'll just be downloading to the files in your Chromebook. So I'm just going to call it final packaging. The reason we're saving a PNG is because PNGs as an image format are a much better bet for saving layouts that have lots of kind of flat colors and text rather than lots of images. JPEGs would be better for layouts that have lots of photographic images. So if we save that there, exporting is basically us taking this file and producing a separate document, because the problem is other people who aren't using Gravity couldn't necessarily open this file, whereas it being an exported file, if we go and have a look, hopefully it's in here. I'll just search. There we go. So that's it now saved as a PNG, which is a standard image file format and could easily be opened up by anyone and printed, sent by email without anyone having to have specialist graphics software. So that's you outputted your final artwork for submission. And you just take that file that you've saved, the PNG of your actual final layout, and you're going to turn that into this assignment as your submission. If you've got any questions, do let me know. Hopefully that's all clear enough. And I'll catch you next time.